Alright, we have a small pile of packages here. With the top one here being a non-anime, well actually more like non-DVD Blu-ray, but I think it's notable. It's Untitled Goose game. Physical version. I wonder if this one will get the multiplayer update. So those are a bunch of ones. That's pretty cool. But now we have to deal with reality. Reality is we're here to do an anime DVD collection update. And to begin with, we have that. There's also a receipt in here that, there we go. And for this kind, I like to get it started with a little kick to the camera. Technically that was a bumping of the inner arm to the camera, but y'all wouldn't have known the difference if I hadn't have said it. Actually, y'all probably could have figured it out, because that arm was separate. We'll put that there. And then the smile is the top, so we can just go... We can just go... Alright, so at the top here we have Season 1 Part 1 of Dr. Stone. It includes 3 art cards and this Funimation sticky, which we are going to meticulously peel off if we can. So I think the basic premise of this show is most people were petrified in something. Dr. Stone is a person maybe trying to figure that stuff out. Maybe kind of shonen-esque. I could be mistaken. It is from Shonen Jump, so it's definitely shonen-esque. But let's get to this. One thing that's notable is I can feel it's kind of thick in the middle. Probably because this is a Blu-ray DVD combo pack. And this is some real bullshit plastic not wanting to come off. Okay. We got Blu-ray 1. Can't even pick up Blu-ray 2. There we go, Blu-ray 2. DVD 1, DVD 2. We have characters. They're kind of, you know, neat looking. Okay, that's part of the issue. And we got thing there. I think I put this back. Got art cards. Yes, 3 art cards. They said 3. I see 3. Okay. This time if I put that under though, it might close better. I'm not feeling it close better down here. Where does I put that? Is it something to do with this? Feels like something's catching on something. First, flatten those. That a little higher up. Oh, that's a lot better. Oh yeah, and we need to look at the back to see regions A and B, English dub, special features, episodes 2 and 10 commentary, and textless opening and ending songs. Pretty straightforward. Oh, we've got a non-anime thing here. This is Rick and Morty DVD Season 2, or 4, blah. You know, because I've gotten a couple of Rick and Morty stuff on DVD. Oh, and we've got a hentai. You know, kind of got to be careful here because there is, you know, some material. But I guess I don't normally open those, so we'll put those aside. I don't think I had the Wind Rises, but well, I mean, I might have had an import copy maybe. And we'll take the sticker off. Okay, so we have bonus features. Exclusive booklet feature like story 10 years with Hayao Miyazaki documentary, behind the microphone. So I guess the thing I don't know is if there's an English dub to this one that maybe wouldn't have been present on any imports I might have gotten, but whatever. I have it. Blu-ray DVD version. It's here. Each opening. We're taking a look at this. And not really expecting too much, but here's that art book. This, and it's upside down, but okay, it's the DVD version. Yeah, that's G-Kids. There's DVD, and there's the Blu-ray disc, and a nice foresty background with some characters in it. Okay, and as you can see, it's got some text too. Pretty cool stuff. Simple, but still cool. Wasteful days of high school girls. I was gonna say, okay, yeah, they're all girls, but no, that's a guy. Trying to think if I can make sure that he's the only guy there, but don't know what it means. Could be fun, could be not. All I know is I'm opening it up now. Whoa. We're going to take a look at the back. I see a region A only. I see an English dub. Special features are here. Clean opening and closing. Japanese promos. All episode previews. Also available from Sentai. So, 300 minutes. 12 episodes on 2 discs. Okay, so I was wondering, because sometimes, usually, if there's not previews, it's because it was big name enough that there didn't need to be previews, or it was a web thing, and so they're shorter episodes. But these are 20-ish, episodes designed to fill a 30-minute slot, basically. We've only got the discs. They're cute. This could be a fun slice of life sort of thing. Maybe with some good comedy, maybe not. I don't know. And then last but not least is Jungle Day Ikou. Well, I only got the Blu-ray version, but there was a DVD re-release of this, which may be higher quality than the old DVD release that I have, but I generally need to know that there's something different, other than the plastic being tenacious and not wanting to come off. Yeah, that's some... Oh yeah, this one's rated 16 and older. There's some jokes, but I only vaguely remember a couple things about it. But not enough to say for certain. Anyways, I got this Blu-ray, so I have it on Blu-ray, even though I also have the old DVD version. But here's this week's anime DVD collection update. So, not a lot of anime watched. I know you see me holding this in my hand, but literally I only watched one episode, and it was last night carrying over to this morning. And since I only watched the first episode, I didn't give it a completely fair shakedown, per se. But I can say that the first episode felt kind of weak. I mean, I talk about a lot of this stuff, and it's unfortunate because the more aware you are of a lot of these tropes and their failings, the easier it is to kind of, I don't know, just notice them more. So, you know, I never know if I'm giving an anime a completely fair for somebody that's not seen a whole lot of stuff opinion. But hopefully you know that when I say the first episode didn't work for me, you understand it's a me thing. And there may be objective things about it that are wrong, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it's unenjoyable or anything like that. Because, you know, I think a couple of us were kind of curious about this because, you know, it's a lot of neat character designs. And so some of my problems with the first episode are, it begins with a kind of narrative info dump, which is not uncommon, but I kind of felt like they wanted the show to begin at some point that is just like well defined from a weird point where we start, and I don't think that works so well in this case. You kind of need it because if you're introducing a fantastical setting, then you want people to kind of understand. Oh, okay, yeah, so that's where they're going. But this one wanted to go. It wanted to start from a kind of deeper place, which means a narrative is required. But again, I didn't think it worked. It didn't fail to have me understand. The real problem was just that it kind of failed to make me care, I guess. Because basically it's like, oh yeah, well, suddenly there were these black hole portals that appeared, and a war between different dimensions that was going on started waging here on Earth. Something was resolved. Our main character witnessed this, but then mysterious illness caused her to be in suspended animation and not know the full details of the resolution of that conflict. And she was a little girl, and when she woke up, she was partnered with a ZX from one of those dimensions. And so, you see, as you can see, even though I watch it, even though my brain is so scatterbrained nowadays, it sticks, but none of this stuff really makes me say, okay, I'm really curious. It's just, okay, you stated stuff, but from a storytelling perspective, what can I expect? Now, on its own, that wouldn't tell you that, and there's plenty of shows that I think begin with kind of lousy starts. I think, like, for example, Code Geass Episode 1 is a really good example where you kind of get initially introduced to main characters and it's fine, but then there's all this political terrorism stuff that I find is just like kind of interesting, but it's like we're not seeing the story from their perspective, so while we understand their plight, we're not feeling it, so it's not as interesting a story. And you have our main character who's making some interesting observations, but not awesome. But then Code Geass does the correct thing of making it become really strange, mysterious, and interesting, and you're just like, what the fuck? So this show kind of introduces mysteries, but nothing that's real what the fuck. It's more like, why? So, for example, they put our main character girl in that situation, and it's basically her, as far as I can tell, it's the main character, and that's her ZX there, which is kind of alarming considering that she doesn't appear on here, but her ZX does, and you got all these other characters, except she's not as... So, one of the problems, I guess, is they introduced this idea of a ZX, but not what it is, why we should care, what it means for them to be partnered, and in fact, we don't even get to see their partnering, we just get to see afterwards where it's like, oh, well, they're just partners, and they're kind of matter of fact about it, even though they don't know anything about what that means, and they're just kind of going to this school. And it's like, so you had this girl, you made her get sick for reasons we don't know about, and she was a test tube thing for some amount of time before maybe not being sick enough, and it was it just for narrative purposes? Was it just for... You see, that's the issue, is there's a lot of pretty ideas in there, I think. But the first episode, I felt, didn't sell it. And, you know, usually you say, if you really want to give an anime a shot, you give it, like, 3 episodes. And this one's long enough where, you know, it's like 12 episodes. That's 12 or 13. I can't read from this angle. You know, normally, that's a good idea. Like, Tengen Toppa Gurren Lagann didn't have a bad first episode, but based on the first episode, you probably wouldn't have expected it to be as awesome as it was by the end. But you did start getting a reading for that sort of stuff by the 3rd episode. And it's possible that that's around the time frame when the 3-episode rule started to really turn up. I don't know if it'd been around longer. But this one, you know, I've not given it 3 episodes. And first episode alone, you know, in my opinion, it's just failed to make a case for itself, basically. So, like, okay, they have her going to school. Oh, someone mentioned it's late. Oh, I had no idea. And even though the character said that, we, the audience, aren't giving any impression why we should be thinking of it as elite, other than the fact that a character said it at some point, because it hasn't really done anything to kind of indicate that it's actually elite, other than the fact that it's really new and somehow involved with the peace treaty with the ZX. Okay, so we don't know what it is, so characters are going to the intro ceremony, and hey, two of these other characters they want to introduce are fighting with each other, or they're about to start fighting. Now, why people knew that a fight was immediately about to break out is kind of weird, because the timing was weird, but, you know, sometimes you put that aside. But the problem is, okay, is this a show where we're going to see these characters battle? Well, they kind of start doing that, and then they're like, oh, no, we're going to just shut it down because they're not supposed to fight each other. So why are they collecting together these girls with ZXs? Is it because they want them to fight each other? Is it because they said there's a test, and this was done behind closed doors, so it's supposed to be secret, but to us, the audience, we're just kind of scratching our head saying, well, what's the test? Because we don't get a good feeling for what the characters would be thinking about in that regard, because they keep intentionally blocking it. Oh, and then there is an attack. So are they there as a defense force? And then they're like, okay, now we're going to introduce our main character, ZX, and she does something that's pretty cool, but they kind of blue ball the audience by saying in advance, oh, that's not going to work. And then it doesn't work, and something happens to the main girl, who may be not the most healthy or physically frail or something, but you know, she gets knocked back by a blast, and you're like, oh, well, is something going to happen because she did this? But nothing happens, because it's the end of the episode, and it's just like, okay, well, are they fighting and our main characters are interesting because they're good even if they have flaws, or our characters are flawed and they need to learn to get good? It doesn't establish itself. It's just a bunch of pretty girls not even doing things. It's just kind of introducing them, saying, these are pretty fun, and you can nod and say, yeah, I'm just not convinced that I'm definitely going to be continuing on watching stuff here. So it is what it is. And again, you could probably watch further and tell, but you can also tell that it's just kind of doing a character dump to kind of show off, see this cool character. And to give it credit, it isn't doing Mary Jane. Is that the right term? My brain is so not remembering right now. But it's not doing that thing that Rey from the new Star Wars trilogy definitely is, and those characters from Million Arthur definitely are. Because I thought Mary Jane was actually just a thing, a way to reference marijuana, so what am I thinking? I don't know. The point is, you know, it doesn't commit that sin. Instead, it's... the sins are kind of light in this one. The real problem is just that it doesn't really make a case for saying, yeah, go on and watch the next episode. And I could watch the next episode if I had the energy to focus on that sort of thing. But as you can see, I can barely focus on the camera as it is, so not going to be watching episode 2 of that, probably. Which is unfortunate, because, you know, this could be very easily a me thing, and it could very easily redeem itself. The problem is just that you finish the first episode, and you're not like... I mean, even with Code Geass, you kind of established, oh, okay, so there's some political stuff, whether or not you care about that. You can tell that it's all about how our main character is good at outsmarting people, but then there's this mysterious aspect added, so you kind of know that Code Geass is going to be a mix of those elements, and you can do that just fine. Whereas this... Is it weird that I'm choosing to compare it to Code Geass, even though Code is in the name here? Because I wasn't thinking of that, but that must have not come from nowhere. Oh well. Putting all that aside, with my Friday friend, I guess we decided to just start watching some Goblin Slayer. You know, I think Konosuba was kind of on the mind, but I didn't know where the Blu-ray was, and the spoiler alert is it was there. But, you know, it's not the only show.
we generally choose isekai because they tend to be a little quicker and easier to jump into, and you don't have to think about them as much usually in order to, find something to enjoy about them, which is, I think, what some people don't like about them. And Konosuba is kind of notable as an isekai just because it's kind of a deconstruction. It's not a very blatant one, but it's kind of like it just does it by intentionally messing it all up in a very smart and funny way. And so that was what we were gonna watch, but it took me too long to find it, so we put something else on. Now, Goblin Slayer isn't isekai, but there is something to be said about a lot of isekai overlapping with medieval fantasy storytelling, and Goblin Slayer is actually a really fun one there. I thought I heard from somewhere, maybe it was one of y'all, that it was D&D inspired, and you can kind of see that with all the dice references and stuff. It was kind of interesting because I was just thinking the other day how they introduce the characters, and it starts out okay. Starting out okay is an understatement. It starts out great, if possibly very over the top in terms of the horribleness in the first episode, but it's pretty much setting the bar high or low or something like that. So you kind of know it's going to have that sort of stuff, but the first episode is pretty much the worst of it, even though there's still some pretty horrible stuff kind of mentioned and talked about and done later. But the first episode is about setting the expectations, I think. And what was I saying with all this stuff? Yeah, I was saying that as a show, it could have very easily grown stagnant, because while we enjoy watching Goblin Slayer do his stuff, you do need reasons to kind of mix things up a little bit and to make sure you're not seeing things just from his perspective, because a lot of the entertainment comes from other characters interacting. So if you have a super awesome character, one thing you can do is bring them from situation to situation to situation, so that instead of this continuous build up and then you can't get any higher with more awesome, instead you're getting your source of entertainment by watching new people see this awesome thing. And that's not used enough in storytelling nowadays, I think, because there's some shows that use it. I think One Piece has used it pretty well, where sometimes during its down arcs, it's like, oh, by the way, did you remember Sanji was an awesome fucking cook? Well, here he is teaching somebody important lessons about cooking, and they're gonna get something from it. Oh, and here's Luffy kind of bringing his innocent heart to a situation that kind of lets people realize, yeah, I've never liked this. I didn't want to say it, even though I was admitting it to myself, but now I'm willing to say something and do something, because the idiot is willing to step forward and do something, and he's kind of a battle tank, and so it's whatever. So with Goblin Slayer, they can do that, but they kind of make it where they don't need to do that too much by giving a really good supporting cast around him. So they do that introduction of some people learning how awesome he is here and there, but it succeeds because it creates these characters around him that are pretty awesome. Even though they follow a lot of tropes and stereotypes for some stuff, they're just fun. That also, the reason I was chatting about all that stuff is because the episode where they introduced the 3 other racy characters that kind of become main cast, that would be the Elf Dwarf and the Lizard Man, and I gotta say, no, I just love them all so much. They're all 3 a really great addition, which is good because the Lizard Man is probably the easiest one to mess up, and they did him so well. That's why I keep thinking I like the Lizard Man the most, but then I keep thinking, I'm like, no, I really like them all. Anyways, they all have different names for the character from their own respective groups, because I guess Common Tongue is not necessarily commonly spoken in those countries, I guess. And one of the interesting things was, so we know him as Goblin Slayer. I think there are other names for him, or literal translations for those. and one of those is orc beard, and like orcs and goblins, those seem like completely different things. But then I kind of started realizing, I don't know why I never thought of this before, but in the Lord of the Rings, orcs and goblins are pretty much the same thing. They're just kind of referred to by different names, I guess, in Hobbit versus Lord of the Rings, maybe. I'm not a big expert on the text, but I do remember that kind of distinction confusing me. And in the animated Rankin Bass, the goblins and the orcs had the same general character design. I was going to say a very Rankin Bass design, but right now I'm blanking on what exactly that means because I have to compare it to Thundercats and I'm not thinking. But the point is, I guess that idea that goblins and orcs can kind of be the same thing are there, even though I think of a goblin as usually being a smaller, green, kind of scraggly, and an orc kind of being bigger, maybe tusked, more aggressive. One of them would be one you wouldn't want to wrestle with, and the other one, you're just pretty much asking yourself the question, well, how many 5-year-olds could I fight? Which, you know, the point of Goblin Slayer is that people think of goblins that way, and they are almost designed that way, but the answer is usually, no. You're usually not as prepared as you think you are. Anyways, it's all stuff. I think he enjoyed it. It's hard to tell because he was also doing support stuff, but, you know, he usually multitasks. Anyways, and the point is, you know, for me personally, Goblin Slayer is fun to watch because the titular character is absurdly pragmatic. Like, you don't go in there thinking, okay, well, he's just Goblin Slayer because he's a high-level player who does more damage per swing and stuff like that. No, he's got... His equipment is designed to be more practical and thought out, and he takes non-conventional approaches to some stuff, as well as conventional, but not always the first thought of stuff for a lot of things. You know, it's just highly pragmatic. And I would say it's to a fault, but I don't mean it's to a fault as in like it makes it unentertaining per se, but rather that he becomes a little less approachable, especially since he makes good points about, you know, they don't actually have evidence of any goblins being good, which is why they have to go by the presumption that they're all bad, especially since even if they let the kids live, the kids tend to learn from the mistakes of the parents and become even tougher to kill, and they end up just doing the same horde stuff regardless of whether or not they're spared, as far as our characters know. Which is why, even though you say, killing kids, are you Anakin now? Well, instead it's more like, yeah, that's an unfortunate reality. It's like, even if you are a vegetarian, you have to at least admit that, you know, in the farming of the vegetation, there is some animal life that's going to die. So even if you're doing it to avoid it, you can't fully avoid it. You're usually doing it to reduce it. And so even for people like that, you should kind of understand there's nothing I can do to avoid that. I just have to do my best with what I can do. And I don't know, that's a weird aside. I think I've been on tangents all video, but at least this one's longer than last week's little thing. Oh well, that's a whole lot of blabbering. Mostly I didn't do anything else because it's really easy for an evening to suddenly completely disappear because a peer group wants to play Among Us. Yeah, it's out there. If you didn't see that I played it on Twitch last week, don't worry about it. I think I highlighted all the notable stuff from it. There were other games that could have been notable from other people's perspectives, but from my own perspective, I think I grabbed everything that's mostly up there. And for y'all, Sorry. Anyways, I lost my train of thought there again. Yeah, other than that, it's easy to lose time to Among Us. And because October is just around the corner, this past weekend was, I guess, the opportunity I took to take a break from that world that I'm building and to actually start making preparations for reusing my fall avatar. Maybe not as heavily as I did last year, because my main avatar just has too many awesome functions, but it did mean that I got a couple of dances kind of cleaned up for people. These are dances that were on VRC mods, the car shearer. The audio was slightly off in my opinion. And then the Henry Stickmin distraction dance, which it's good, but there are two problems with it, and one of those is that, well, they pretty much had a full-length thing for the audio playing for the entirety of the animation, when in fact it is a very short loop. It's not even 2 seconds long. It's like 1.833 seconds long or something like that. So instead of having this big long WAV file, you can have this nearly 2 second OGG file, which takes up like 1/100th of the space. Just play it on the loop. It's perfect. So that's an example of cleanup. And then taking the animation, instead of just having a 15-second animation or whatever, cut out the part that's the main loop, have that as its own file, and then create a version of that that's about a minute long, just for anybody that uses Avatar 2. So you have an Avatar 2 option, an Avatar 3 option. You know, clean it up, massage it. Also, I kind of had to adjust the timing of the dance so that it's looped perfectly with the music. And all that stuff was actually really quick to do. That's not much at all. But I did make a completely new Spooky Scary Skeletons dance. I'd like to say from scratch, but you have to understand that basically means that I took the music, a techno remix, I cut a 1 minute chunk out of it, and then I kind of came up with, I started digging through assets to look for Fortnite dances, and I was looking at Sea of Thieves, but unfortunately Sea of Thieves animations are rotated, so I can't copy and paste them to other animations to put together. There was another one whose name starts with D, but I don't remember what it was. So basically, you know, look through some of the dances available in there, some of the movements available in there, and then just kind of splice them together into a minute-long thing. It came out pretty good. It took about as much time to do that as it did to then do the particle effects I decided to do. And they're not like, you're not going to look at them and say, wow, I don't even know where to begin with that. As in, like, some particles things can just be so busy and complex in their stuff that, you know, it can be hard to tell where to start. No, these tend to be simpler. Oh, I haven't done this kind of concept before. Let's do this, this, and this. Okay, yeah, and that it comes out very well. So, yeah, lost a lot of time doing all of that stuff. There was something else. I can't remember what else, because the truth of the matter is I'm going back to the world editing. I'm hoping... I think I'm curious about Wasteful Days and Dr. Stone, so there's a good chance that I might get some anime watching done this week. Especially since those are dubbed. I think they were both dubbed. I don't remember about Wasteful Days, but I'm pretty sure that was dubbed. If they're dubbed, it pretty much means that I'm more likely to be able to put them on the background. That means maybe I'll get through them, which is unfortunate because I still have I have index and accelerator stuff to go through. Anyways, that's this week's anime DVD collection update. Y'all have a nice week.